Today, we have a very special guest joining us, Elizabeth. Quiroz is here with us. You know, Liz is a survivor. I'm going to say she's now a thriver of human trafficking. And we're going to be talking about her reality, tough stuff, sex trafficking, and more. So be forewarned. I want to throw that out there. We're going to be talking about incarceration. We're going to be talking about the justice system, perhaps, and what it's like to clear one's criminal record. Only if Liz wants to do this. We're putting out a trigger warning. We're putting out, just so you know, what we are going to talk about, but it's real. It's the reality. And I can't think of a better way, Liz, than having you here to talk the reality with us. So welcome, Liz, to the Warriors.
Thank you so much. And I just love that title, Warriors, because that's what survivors are. That's overcoming that type of trauma. They're warriors. And so I'm just super grateful and honored to be here.
Well, thank you, because I'm just going to keep thanking you the whole program. I am honored because I hold survivors, victims very near and dear and very careful. I want to wrap my arms around you and protect you and everyone. So it's, your story to tell. But before we dig into that, I just want to say we met just a few short weeks ago. It was your first time, am I correct, in New York City?
Yes. Yes.
And we met because our coalition group, we call it New Yorkers for the Equality Model. We held a day of intense training with Miss Kelly from Mona's house up in Buffalo, New York, talking about the equality model. So I was thrilled to meet you, and you made it. You made it with your suitcase. You did it.
Yes.
Not an easy feat in New York City first time. So you get a gold star for that one.
Thank you.
And I want to get into the equality model a little bit with you, but first I want to ask you, I want to jump right in. I should actually point out that we're going to get into who you are and all that, but your website, redemptionhouseofthebayarea.org, everybody. Did you get that? redemptionhouseofthebayarea.org. Again, all of the information will be in the body of this video. Now, Liz, let's start with, before we really get into things, tell us a little bit about yourself, like if you want to talk about your childhood, anything you want. Let's start there.
Well, I just want everybody to know that I want people that's listening to know there's hope for survivors that come from any type of trauma, come from my background. There's hope for us. And so my trauma started at the age of 4. I was physically abused and sexually abused. And as I grew older, the physical abuse continued to happen. And so I lived in a single parent household. I came from poverty. And so there was a lot of statistics against me that I was destined to fail. So for me to be able to be here, to be able to share my testimony and I hold a degree, for me to finish and complete school and still go for higher education is a miracle. To do half the stuff I'm doing today, like coming from that background, is a miracle. So I just want to be able to give hope to others that are listening. And so, like I said, my trauma started at the age of 4, grew up in a single parent household, physically abused. And then eventually I landed in the foster care system because of the trauma I was enduring at home. And I was the type of, all children are looking for their, love in their parents. And so I was always looking for that love in my father because he wasn't in my life like that. So I was with my mom and my dad. I was always wanting my dad. And so when a girl's coming from that type of background and they're placed in the foster care system and they're looking for that father figure, they are high risk for human trafficking. And that's what happened to me. So because I was in that foster home and it wasn't a safe placement for me, I ended up running away from everything, like leaving that placement, not going back to my mom's. And I thought, because eventually I did go back with my dad. But by the time I got with him, I had PTSD, I had trauma, I was suicidal, I had depression, I was angry. So I got with him. I went to my dad's house at 15 years old. So I had all these issues. My dad didn't know how to handle it. He's got a history of gang violence. Like he was in gangs. He has history of that. He was an alcoholic himself, so he wasn't able to meet my needs when I got with him. And so I started to go to high school. I started to flunk classes. I was ditching classes. I was hanging out with older people, experimenting with drugs, and I just started to go down a really dark path. And these are all red flags when adolescents are in high school or when they're in middle school or even elementary. You want to pay attention to the youth and to the children that are displaying these type of signs. And so nobody asked me questions. Nobody say, hey, why are you ditching classes? What's going on? Why is your grades falling down? Or why are you hanging out with gang members? Like, what's going on? And so I just fell through the cracks. I feel like throughout my life, I fell through the cracks. And that's why I do what I do. So I make sure that others don't fall through the cracks, and their voice are being heard, and there's resources to support them. And that's kind of like why we're advocating for the equality model. And so because it implements resources, exit resources for these victims that are being trafficked. And so eventually, like I said, I got with my dad, and by the time I was with my dad, I had all these issues. And this is where I met an older man, and he came up to me and he said, "Hey, you're gorgeous. You're beautiful. What is your name?" These are things I've never heard growing up. Nobody told me I was beautiful and I was worth it and I was precious and important. So when this man gave me that attention, it literally pulled me in. And that's what traffickers do. That's what predators do. They prey on the vulnerable. So they literally befriend you and be in a relationship with you and take care of you, give you all these promises that they're going to be there for you. And then when they have you trapped and brainwashed, then it's the total opposite. And so that's what this man did to me. So this is called the honeymoon phase, the grooming process. And so we started hanging out. We started dating. He told me he was 19, but in reality, he's 27 and I was only 15. But a lot of times youth are naive. So I was super naive, believing everything that came out of his mouth. And so he was getting me loaded off of drugs. So I was experimenting with drugs with him too. And what comes in that lifestyle is also rape, sexual assault. So he started to rape me. And I didn't know that this was rape. I didn't know what was happening was not okay, because I thought it was okay because he was taking care of me and he was a father figure for me and he was filling that void that I had within me. So and all the trauma and physical and sexual abuse was normalized. So that's why I thought it was okay. And so eventually I ran away from my dad's and I went with this man. And so little did I know like the plans he had for me, like what he was going to do. And so he took me to San Francisco in 16th and Mission. And this is where he started to have me be like a drug mule. So at this point, I was 16 years old. And a drug mule is when you are holding on to drugs on areas of your body. You're transporting drugs. You're putting drugs in somewhere private and you're holding on to it. So your body's holding on to those drugs. And so that's what he did to me. And so that was my first interaction with, being involved in the drug life. Like when you're selling drugs and you're becoming a drug runner, drug trafficker. So I started to be involved with that. And so he was also part of a prison gang that's here in the Bay Area. And all his homies would be downtown with us. So he started to train me to look down on the floor. So I couldn't make any eye contact with other men. And if I did, that meant I was their property and not his. I was his property. At some point, he also got me tattooed. So this is called labeling. He labeled his name and called me his property on one of my arms. And the other arm, he called me his wife. And so those are all red flags too when you see somebody that's tattooed like that or labeled that way. So I was his property, and I thought it was okay because I was that ride or die girlfriend. I was that girl that was looking for love and just wanted that attention. So I didn't think it was bad. But now that I know that's trafficking and that's exploitation and that's a predator and that's not okay, that's why I'm sharing my experiences and letting people know, hey, look out for this stuff. And so eventually he ended up getting arrested and he sent a woman to me. And this woman, I thought she was, his friend. Supposedly they were friends, but they were from the same prison gang. So when he sent her to me, I automatically trusted her because I thought she was looking out for me. And she told me that I needed to make money to take care of my boyfriend that was locked up. Like, oh, you need to be there for your man. You need to take care of ends meet. You need to pay for your bills, put money on his books. And this is how we're going to do it. And she told me I was going to sleep with men. And when she told me that, I said, no, I don't want to do that. Like, that's scary. I was 16 years old. I was a child. Like, I didn't want to do that. But then eventually I was forced to do that. I felt like I had no choice. It was either do that or go back to my mom's house, when I was being beaten. And that's the whole reason why I ran away in the first place, because I didn't want to go back to my home. And so that's a lot of the reasons why children end up on the streets, or they end up in the foster care system, or they even run away from foster care because they don't want to be in that cycle of trauma. So they run to the streets. And so I felt like I had no choice. So I was stuck in that situation. And so she started to sell me at the corners. I was being sold to men in these cars. And these men are like fat, like they got wives, they have children, they're business owners. Like, these men were purchasing me and they were and raping me. And I felt like a rose. And every time I was being raped, a petal fell off of me. And I was literally detaching in every situation because I could not physically be there. So when you experience that type of situation, it's a long life journey. Like, I'm still healing from that today. And I'm married. People ask me, like, how are you married? I'm married. I've been married going on 10 years and my husband has 4 kids. I have 1. So I'm learning to be a wife and a mom. But with that type of trauma, it's really hard. So it's a lot of therapy, a lot of exit resources, a lot of support to get jobs. There's just so much, a whole body care that you need to be able to thrive coming from that background. And so when that had happened to me, she was taking the money. She ended up just keeping the money and I didn't get any of that. And I want people to know too, that's listening, that when women start to traffic others, that's because at one point they were victims themselves. So something happened to them and they were victimized and they decided, you know what, I don't want to be the victim anymore. Or there was a situation that took place where they were forced to, like, I don't want to be that victim, so I'm gonna put somebody else in that role. So that's what happened. At one point they were victims and now they're traffickers. So we have to just understand that. So when we come across a situation like that, we have understanding. And so she, like I said, she was taking the money and then she ended up leaving when he got out. So when he got out, she left. And then I told him what happened because I felt like I was obligated. Like I needed to be honest with my boyfriend. That's the love of my life. I felt dirty. I felt ashamed because I didn't know that they knew that they were tag teaming it. They were a team. They were manipulating me. So when I told him, he said, well, if you did it for her, you can do it for me. And then he started crying. He said, show me how much you love me. Like, show me your loyalty. So he pulled that whole card, manipulated me. And I started crying. I said, of course I love you. I will do anything for you. And that's what happened. He took me back out there on the strips of, in San Francisco. It's 16th and Mission, 20th Shotwell, and 17th Cap. So these are the Blade in San Francisco. So he put me on those corners and he started selling me to these cars again. And he's collecting the money. And so in my heart, I was like dying inside because I'm like, whoa, my boyfriend is okay with this? Like, what's happening? But I felt like I had no choice. That's what it was for me. And so eventually just this lifestyle continued. And as I got older, he did get arrested again and ended up getting deported. And I took that lifestyle into my adult years because I thought that was a way to make money. I didn't have any high self-esteem. I didn't have a high school diploma. I was a high school dropout. I didn't have any, in my mind, I didn't have any skills. I mean, a lot of the hustling I was doing out there is transferable skills. And you can do that today with something positive, like basically the motivation, the consistency, the dedication to go sell drugs or to make that, or meet that client or connect that client with this client or make that, make this amount of money by this certain day. You can use that to apply for scholarships. You can use that, that motivation to go apply for a job and or start a business or write your own book. But I didn't know that at the time. I thought that was the cycle for me. I thought that's what it was. I wasn't going to reach out to law enforcement because there was multiple times where I came across law enforcement and I was treated as a criminal and not as a victim of human trafficking. And I wasn't offered any resources. So I just stayed away from them, didn't reach out to no other support organizations. And I just continued to live that lifestyle because that's what I thought I was worth. And so because of that trauma, I picked up an addiction of meth. So I was on meth for about 12 years. And then I started getting arrested just in and out of correctional facilities because I could never look in a guy's eye. I always looked down on the floor. And then I was on drugs. If you would see my mugshots, I had scabs all over my face and my arms.
I saw them. I looked. Yeah.
I developed psychosis because I was up days at a time, trying to meet quotas, trying to pay stuff off, and then trying to, live and survive. And so I was trying to numb out the pain. And so when I had these scabs on my face and I would get arrested, the officers just thought I was a criminal. And they assumed because I couldn't look at him in the eye, that I was just a criminal. And that was not the case. I was trained to look down on the floor. I had all these things going on behind the scenes. I remember when I was 19, I was carrying a knife. And, when you're out there, you need protection. You need to protect yourself because people are going to prey on you. They prey on your vulnerability. People jump you. There's just so much stuff that happens on the streets. So I had a knife. And when they arrested me and I went to court, the judge told me I was a danger to society. And I was like, what? How dare he call me that? And of course I didn't say anything to him because I was scared to be, handcuffed with all these officers. I was scared, but I was mad that he even said that because he doesn't understand like what I had survived on the streets, what had happened to me, that I was being sold to these men, been through the foster care system, like out here surviving, and you're calling me a danger? What about all those men that bought me? What about them? What about my traffickers? What about the people that exploited my situation or exploited me? What about that? So it was just it made me so mad that he said that to me. So I would never forget that moment, because it's important that our, public servants, judges, attorneys, law enforcement, anybody that's in that type of work understands that we don't choose to wake up one day and say, hey, we're going to carry a weapon, or we don't choose to wake up one day and say, hey, we're going to go commit this crime, or we're going to sell our bodies, or we're going to be trafficked. Something happened to get us down that path. So we just need to understand what happened and see how we can support and help that individual.
Mm.
Yeah. So as I got older,
I have to stop you for a minute. First of all, I wish, Liz, I had been there for you.
Yeah.
And any, girls, young women,
Yeah.
I'll just leave it at that, before I start crying. It is totally unacceptable.
Yeah.
It is totally everything you just said. Thank you for being so brave, and thank you for wanting to share your story. Your story is a story heard over and over again. You're laying out how these criminals, these predators, they take advantage of vulnerable girls, or it could be a boy too, but we're talking about girls now. Seeking love, seeking attention, just seeking a father figure and thinking they're doing it for love. And I'm glad you point out, so many people have said to me, why don't they just run away? And I try to explain to them, this is all they know. Where are they running to? They are psychologically beaten down, and most of the time drug addicted. So you tell me where they're running to. When we do have law enforcement, and I work with a lot of very good law enforcement, but there's also the justice system and a lot of law enforcement, let's be honest, and they don't understand any of this, or they don't take the time to understand any of this, or they say, Lynn, we don't have anywhere to put people, so just leave them. So thank you for sharing that heartbreaking story. I want to get into the equality model a little bit, because you mentioned it before I mentioned it. I want people to really understand what the equality model is and why we want the equality model. Why do you, going through all of this, Liz, tell us about the equality model.
So this is important. And so, like I was mentioning, my years of incarceration, and when I ended up meeting my third trafficker, this was involving labor trafficking. So he was having me sell a large amount of drugs for him. So whenever I was getting in contact with law enforcement, there was never any resources offered. And so that's why the equality model is important, because in that approach, we're saying, hey, let's not criminalize the victims. Let's give them resources, and let's criminalize the perpetrators, the traffickers, and the buyers. And so for me, my last arrest, when I was under my third trafficker, that all they wanted to know was, who was I selling drugs for? They knew I was a drug runner. They said, who are you working for? That right there should have gave them the red flag that I was a trafficking victim. But they didn't care. All they cared about was getting my person, the person I was running for. So as soon as they got that information from me, what did they do? They took me straight to jail and left me there. Didn't offer me any resources, didn't connect me with the counselor, didn't give me any references to, obviously I was addicted to drugs, because you can tell, and I was selling drugs. There was no connections to rehab facilities within the jail system. So that's why it's super important that we implement the equality model, because when we come across somebody that's been trafficked, we have those exit resources available. And even though there might be situations where they might have to do some time. I mean, I had gotten, my last prison term was 5 years. So that's what I'm saying. There might be time that there might be situations where they might have to do time, but let's offer them services. You know what I mean? Like, let's give them services so that way they're able to heal. Or if we can eliminate the time and just basically give them the services.
That's what I think. But
yeah. That's like, there's situations that are different, right? There's like, every situation is different, but still, let's offer these individual services so that way they can get the help they need. And then we have the buyers and the traffickers that are being held accountable. Like, they get in trouble. We hold them accountable. So that's why it's super important.
Well, they should be in jail, not you as a victim. Liz, what are these services? Explain some of these services that are needed for victims.
So for me, like, I think what would have helped for me was having services such as treatment facilities, therapy, for somebody that's like, instead of being arrested, right, and they're getting these extra resources, like, let's put them into rehab. Let's see what if they have an addiction, or if they have alcoholism, let's put them in rehab so they can get that healing they need. Let's connect them to therapy. Let's not put all this red tape where they have to wait on the waiting list to get a therapist. Let's have a therapist. There's survivors I work with that are on the waiting list for months before they get a therapist. So it's like, let's get them a therapist ASAP, because once they sit on it for so long, they're gonna be like, you know what, I don't need therapy. Like it's good to give that to them right then and there before they change their mind. Number 3, job skills. That's super important. Like everything they did on the street, there's transferable skill that they can pull out of that. And so with job skills, they can be like working with a mentor to help them with job skills can help them transfer all that. And they can help them interview for job interviews, help them, do a resume, help them do something positive and uplifting so they are confident to go get a job, and so that's important. And also connecting with safe houses. If they want to go to like a transitional housing or a safe house, it's having that resource as well, or just even low income housing. It's super needed. There's clients I work with in the field I work with that are having problems getting to housing because they're so limited. And so when we connect with realtors that has assets or connections to low income housing, it's super important that we collaborate. So it's like having those resources to housing, having resources to mental health, or just a psychiatrist so where they can get some type of diagnosis. Like if they have ADHD, or if they have PTSD, or they have bipolar, like let's deal with the root issue. Let's get them stabilized so that way they can start working on their trauma. So connecting them with psychiatry, just any type of support to help them thrive. I think that's super important under the equality model.
And I want to reinforce for those who want it, right? Because we hear this media argument, we hear the argument on the street, my body, my choice. It's empowering to sell myself, all that kind of what I'm going to call is nonsense, because and I know there's nothing empowering about getting in a car with a stranger, as an example, who probably has a family at home, who's probably, a lot of them are white men, well-to-do sort of, right? Doing this, abusing young girls, young women. And the equality model, we have to get this passed. We have to get the resources. The number one thing is resources. We don't ever have enough psychiatrists. We don't have enough safe houses. Victims, survivors tell me they just want like a bed, with a roof over their heads, clean, just to go to sleep, in a bathroom.
Yeah.
So
and they don't have to give nothing in exchange. Yeah. And they don't have to give nothing in exchange for that.
Nothing.
Yeah.
And so like, that's what we have to work as I'm in New York City, you're in California, but as a country, we have to work harder on this and bigger and better. And our elected officials have to get involved.
Yeah.
They have to understand that this is the way to go, because we know where prostitution is legal in other countries. We can back all this up by studies. It has only increased sex trafficking, supply and demand. More people are trafficked. A lot of the demand is younger the better, kids, young teens. It doesn't work. So that argument of legalization is safer, doesn't work, hold any water. And I'm going to publish, I'm going to put links to all of these things in the body of the video. Now, I want to know this, and it is horrendous, your story. It really does break my heart, Liz. How did you eventually climb out? And by the way, because when I was doing my research, you don't even look like that person I saw in any of those pictures.
I know.
I'm like, really? This isn't even her, the one picture I saw. I'm like, you're beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
You're a powerful woman. You are a warrior. But I don't know who she is, but I left her on the computer because
don't ever want to go back to that. No,
that's not my Liz. Now let's get through. How did you climb out of this and then get yourself, again, I want you to tell your story, get yourself enrolled in school.
Yeah.
And start getting all these degrees. How did you make that break? What was that light bulb that went off over your head?
So for me, when I got my last prison term, I decided I needed a change because I had a 3-month-old baby boy. He was 3 months old. And I, throughout my whole pregnancy, I was being trafficked, selling drugs and using. And so because I couldn't get out of that lifestyle, because it was a mindset for me, it was a lifestyle. And so eventually when I got arrested, I realized, you know what, I have to do something different. Like I need to end the cycle within my family, because if I didn't end it, it was going to continue with my son. And so it was that pivotal moment for me that I needed to change my life. So that's what I was saying earlier. Like sometimes people have to do jail time to wake up. And I'm not saying we want that for victims. I'm not that we don't want that. We want to be able to have those resources. Like if I honestly would have got arrested then and maybe sent to a treatment facility, that probably would have been a more smoother ride for me. And I probably would have healed faster. But everybody's journey is different. You know, for me, I just needed to get off the streets and be somewhere safe. And so that's incarceration was that for me. And that, like I said, doesn't work for everybody, but that's what worked for me to get out of that life. And so I ended up getting 5 years. And so I had to learn and get the resources.
Wait a minute, Liz, 5 years without your baby, right? Your baby was
without my son. Yeah. So I did 18 months out of the 5 years. And so I missed all my son's steps, his words. I missed a lot of stuff out of his babyhood, like him being a baby. I missed all of that.
Who took him? Do you want to say who took care of him or not?
So I ended up he went with a relative. And so because I had left him at a dope house when I got arrested. So I made a decision at the moment to call that relative to pick up my son. And so that person did. And so eventually, you know, while I was incarcerated, like the resources wasn't given to me. I had to seek it. A lot of the times victims of human trafficking are not, sometimes if they're sitting there and they don't know what's there, they're not going to seek for it. They're just going to continue that pattern and that mindset and that lifestyle because that's what they know. And so that's why we need to make it easy for those resources to be available if they're arrested. If they're incarcerated, we need to give them those resources. And I didn't know I was a trafficking victim.
I'm totally interrupting you again. Liz, you're telling me nobody ever sat you down, like a woman or anything? Like, because a lot of kids and teens and young women, men, they don't even realize like they're a victim of trafficking. Yeah. Nobody ever sat you down and like tried to talk with you, question you, nothing?
No, not about human trafficking. So there was a lady named Christina Corpus. She was the captain at the time inside the facility. So she would pull me out of my cell and just tell me, hey, you have so much potential. You don't need to be coming here. So she would plant that seed of hope. But nobody ever told me I was a victim of trafficking. I didn't realize that until I got released from jail and I went to Women's Recovery Services. And when I went to that program, that's where I learned, and I chose to go to that program. It was like not part of my sentence. I had to do my term and then get out and go do another 4 months in a program that I chose to do because I wanted to change. And then when I was in program, that's when I realized that I was a victim of human trafficking, that I was not a child prostitute. I was ashamed for what happened to me for years. And when they told me you are not a prostitute, it is not your fault, it literally gave me hope. Like it gave me hope. It removed all the shame. It removed the guilt. And that's what started my inspiration to go to college, to being a counselor, to be an advocate. I mean, I got my GED when I was incarcerated, so I knew I wanted to do something different. You know, it's just I needed to be given that space to feel safe and share my truth and not be judged. And then I could start my healing journey. So that's what happened for me. I completed that Women's Recovery Services program, got out, went to Santa Rosa Junior College, was at the college. Oh, somebody's at the door. I was at college for 5 years and I got my associate's degree. I got 3 AAs, Human Services, Social Advocacy, and Behavioral Science. And then I graduated with highest honors. I'm the first one in my family to receive a degree. So first generation, like for me to accomplish that was huge. And then I ended up going to Sonoma State to get my bachelor's degree. When I graduated with distinction, like they picked me as one of the students that were like successful in that program. And I ended up going to Arizona State University and got my master's in social justice and human rights.
Wonderful. So excellent.
So I just, you
really are a warrior. I mean, you had, despite all you were going through, have been through, you still had Liz inside you. That little seed somewhere to push forward. And that's why I see so many girls in particular, they don't have that seed. That's what I'm worried about. Yeah. They don't have it, that we're trying to, help them grow. But okay, I interrupted your story. I mean, this is fantastic. You are such hope. Like, I'm so glad you are out there. You want to speak about this because this is what resonates. Like, I haven't been trafficked. I feel very fortunate. I haven't been exploited. I feel really fortunate. Mm-hmm. We need your voice.
Yes.
We need the voices that want to speak, not forcing people to speak or using them. I'm very weary. I've seen some things with survivors I just don't care for personally. I don't like what's called a dog and pony show. You know what I'm saying? Like, put a
Yeah.
survivor out there to get attention or whatever. No, you are here bravely sharing your story. We're going to talk about Redemption House,
Yeah.
and people have to step up. I mean, it's
Yeah.
2024. Come on, people. They know what it is. It's volunteering, it's donations. You're hearing us talk about the equality model. Monies
Mhm.
are needed. Liz is walking proof of change. Community creates change.
Yes.
Monies are needed. Our government's not doing enough. I don't want to hear about these grants and all this stuff. I don't know, all that red tape. That doesn't help somebody in the immediate moment.
Yeah.
But I digress with all of that for a second. But it's very important that people understand what is needed here. And also for, kids, that our future adults, our future leaders, we cannot, our precious children, our teens, we
Yeah.
cannot allow this, Liz. Like,
I
not on
know.
my watch. And I know not on your watch. I know this.
Yeah.
Okay, now let's continue. So you do all these fantastic things. You have
Mhm.
50 million degrees now. Um,
Yes.
and you
Well,
make
and
me
I'm not done.
smile.
I'm not done yet. I'm getting my doctorate's degree. Because I just want people to know too, the reason why I do this is because I never
Oh,
had
good.
this growing up. I didn't have this when I was out there. So now that I'm actually living and thriving, like I just want everything that my life's meant to have. That's what I want.
And you're sharing it, and then we have to make a movie about it and show it to everybody to give them the hope, to give
Yes.
them that seed, to give them that encouragement. Because
Yeah.
I mean, it's so fantastic. I almost don't have words. All these great things you have done so far, Liz. I say so far because I know you have a long life and career ahead of you.
Yeah.
But even if I just put my hand like on somebody's shoulder and talk to them, and give them that little attention. The most hardened, sometimes girls and women I've
Yeah.
spoken to,
Yeah.
um, that's what gets them. Just that I'm giving them a little bit of attention.
Yeah.
I'm talking to them. I'm seeing them. I'm seeing them, kind of thing. So now let's fast forward to Redemption House.
Yes.
How did this come about? Tell us the mission. Tell us again what you need for Mission House, because of course, as soon as I win that $1 billion lottery, which is going off tomorrow, I'm giving you a lot of money for Redemption House. And
Yes.
everybody,
Yeah.
I'm trying, Liz. I keep seeing these $1 billion jackpots. I am trying. My money's all going into trafficking, quality model. But anyway,
Yes.
tell us about, how are you strong enough? Again, people have to understand, you don't really ever get healed.
Yeah.
You're able, you have good days, you have bad days. Let's be truthful. It's trauma. It's trauma that is suffered. It's a lifelong process of healing. I look at it that way.
Yeah.
Okay. You're certainly more the expert about all of this. But then you go on to form Redemption House, your
Yeah.
co-founder. Tell us about this.
So my partner, Lisa Diaz-McQuaid, we're both survivors of human trafficking, and we're BIPOC leaders. So we're people of color. And we are using our experiences to bring hope. We're using our experiences, our lived experiences, for expertise, right? And to bring hope and to bring purpose. And so that's why we co-founded Redemption House of the Bay Area in 2018, because we want to use our stories to help others. Like, we're not just going to come out of that lifestyle and just survive and just, okay, never happened, let's move on. No, we want to use those experiences for something good. And so that's why we co-founded this organization that became established, a 501c3 in 2020. And now we're just building. We're building, and we're going to eventually open a safe house. That's the goal here in Sonoma County. But that's it's going to be like a 5-year goal. So in the meantime, we're still building. We're still getting the word out. Obviously, like whenever I go somewhere, like when I go to New York, or if I go on the other side of the state, I'm going to let people know about Redemption House and that we're here. And we're going to expand, so eventually we'll expand. But for now, we're trying to get a safe house in Sonoma County. And that's why we started it, because us survivors coming together saying, hey, let's do something about this. We're very passionate. We got our voices back. What can we do? Let's form this nonprofit. And that's what we did. So we've been partners ever since, building it, bringing it off the floor. We have a wonderful board of directors that are like literally backing us up and supporting us. Yeah. So it's a team effort. And so we're just super grateful to be here and, to have this organization in Sonoma County and to eventually expand and partner with other agencies, law enforcement, to partner with other nonprofits, other survivors, like the survivors in our group that we support, the women we work with. We're always inspiring them and pushing them to share their stories when they're ready. And so we offer those type of platforms via Zoom, on panels, workshops, trainings. They are given opportunities to share their story when they're ready. And that gives them a sense of power, a sense of purpose. Yes. And so it's part of their healing journey. And so we're just continuing to rise up leaders. That's because I said that in New York when I was there. Like, we need more survivor leaders in these spaces. And so that's what we're doing with our women. We're giving them a voice.
I don't even know what to say, except you're a warrior. No. And the warriors will be partnering with you and helping and spread the message, doing everything we can do to help you get some of those most important dollars, because people have to understand, even with a safe house. I actually have people say, I don't even understand what a safe house is.
Yeah.
Now, don't get me started, because, people could look things up, but they don't. Okay. But a safe house is not just a place to, sleep and put your head, because what you're talking about, the Redemption House, it's also lining up with other organizations, trying to get job training, that constant encouragement, maybe medical, psychological, trying to line. It takes a lot of manpower, or woman power, I should say. And it also takes dollars, and it also just takes people, also great people. We work with a lot of people, pro bono. They'll want to donate like some of their time and all that. Speaking of pro bono, it just reminded me of something. You were incarcerated.
Yeah.
And what happened? Because now I'll let you tell the story go ahead.
So yes, I was arrested, did my time. There was multiple cases. I was arrested. I no longer have a criminal record. My record's gone. And so
that's why I was trying. Like, I wanted you to say it, because I think because nobody who's been trafficked, who's been the victim, who's been put in a position of, dealing the drugs, because we know that's what goes on a lot now, right? Almost all the time. Like, you don't belong in jail, but that's my opinion. You don't belong. You belong getting services, and no minor, in my opinion, certainly. Currently in the United States, on any given night, we have approximately about 2,000 minors in adult jails mixed in, which to me is a horrifying thought. Okay. But no minor belongs in jail. That's what I think. So, we want to rally up also, lawyers who want to do pro bono, and doctors who want to do pro bono, and companies who want to give goods and things like that for safe houses, or just toiletries that, people need.
We want to remove those barriers for them to be, when they want to do something different. We want to remove it, because I couldn't get, when I was released and went to college, I couldn't get a job for a longest time because of my criminal record. I easily could have given up and say, screw this, I'm going back to what I know, and that's how I'm going to make money. But we can't do that. We just can't put that roadblock for them. We have to make it super easy so they can thrive, and make it easy for them to be able to get a job, and remove all those barriers, because a typical average person that's never been arrested is going to get a job. You know what I mean? Like, it'll be easy for them to get a job, but for somebody with that's been arrested, that's a trafficking victim with all these barriers, it's going to be hard. So we want to remove all those barriers.
Yeah. And I don't know about California, to be honest, but I know in New York, the work we do, a person will go back like 8 times before they come out of this life of prostitution and all that, because that's what they know. And that's where, if they have a record, it's easy for them. They just give up. There's no hope.
Yeah.
So Liz, you're really providing so much hope. Fill us in before I let you go. You wrote a book.
I did.
You're an author. On top of everything, you're an author.
Yes.
Did you actually, how was that? Was it therapeutic for you, writing, putting it out there? I'm going to be ordering it. I admit I have not gotten it yet. And I'm going to be ordering it for other people as gifts. Those are the kind of gifts I give people. Okay. That's what they get for birthdays and Christmases, because I want everybody to know, like, about what we talk about. Like, this has to part. I say, like, we eat, we sleep, we go to school, we go to work. No, now you have to learn about trafficking, exploitation. Don't let your daughter, son, family member get involved. Know what's going on. There's no embarrassment here, right? It's like, we have to talk about these things. This is the way I look at it. So I'll be purchasing a lot of copies of that book.
Thank you.
Tell us about the book, though, writing it.
So it's called Purified in the Flame, and it was very therapeutic. I was literally getting very, very honest and vulnerable on all those pages. And I felt like, I'm like, should I say this? Should I not say that? But I'm like, you know what? No, I need to be honest and just put it out there, because somebody that's reading it can really be helped through what is being said in these pages. So it was very therapeutic. It took me a year to do it. And so, I mean, I know everybody's journey is different on writing books, but for me, it was just very healing. I was very excited. I felt like everything I went, because I had to relive those moments, right?
That's what I'm saying. It's very triggering, very traumatizing.
Yeah. But then I realized, okay, it's for a greater purpose. And so that's what gave me hope to finish it. And so I'm just really excited on who it's helping today.
I'm ashamed I haven't read it yet, but I promise you, because I am a reader, I will be reading it. So I want
Thank
you to read.
you.
I
And
will.
please
Liz, I want.
leave me a review on Amazon.
Uh, oh, I sure will.
Yeah.
I just want to say to you, Liz, before I let you go, you are really a shining example of a warrior.
Thank
I
you.
mean this. I mean this. I mean this. I'm so happy that we recently met. I'm
Yeah.
so happy you're willing to share your story because we're going to help others,
Yes.
right? And you're doing such wonderful things. You're really a role model.
Thank you.
And I just want you to know that you're so fantastic.
Oh,
That's it.
thank you.
You're
You
the
are
most
too, Lynn.
fantastic. We have a lot to do, and I feel like we're gonna
Yes.
do it. Like I'm feeling
Yes.
it, you know. You really you're infectious. And
Oh,
infectious,
thank
like
you.
you make me want to work harder. You make me want to do better. And that's kind of where I come from. You know, like if somebody inspires me, I can do bigger, I can do better. So thank you for giving me those tools. I want to point out everybody,
Mhm.
redemptionhouseofthebay.org. We love you so much, Liz.
Oh, thank
Um,
you.
Victims and survivors, I want everybody to hear from you. Promise me we'll speak again soon because there's
Yes.
so many issues we have to keep on top of. Redemption House,
Mhm.
getting the safe house off the ground. We have to keep on top of maintaining all the work you're doing now, maintaining also awareness about the equality model
Yeah.
and coming together again and getting our warriors and spreading the news. And I know we have a lot more to talk about. So I want to say to you, Liz, I almost want to cry right now, but I'm not going to cry because you make me so happy with that beautiful smile. Liz,
Oh,
Quiroz, thank you for taking the time. Promise me we'll talk again soon.
we
Stay
will.
safe, be well, call me
Yes.
anytime, and just understand you truly are a warrior.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Lynn.
Thanks,
Take
Liz.
care.